Hi everybody, Uncle Max here from Life to the Max Show. You know, I have a lot of different topics, a lot of different subjects that we cover, a lot of different areas in which we want to help people to improve and get better. We even have what we call or will call the wheel of disaster. So we'll visit a disaster and say, okay, first of all, we know this happens. We don't want it to happen to you. So what do we do to be better prepared for it? What do we do when it's occurring, and how do we deal with it, the after effects and aftermath of that? One of those is going to be war. We don't like war. Now, what we've been fighting right now is, it may seem like a terribly tragic and horrific thing, and I'm not trying to minimize it or say it was less. A lot of people have done a lot and have gone through a lot and are suffering a lot even to this day with PTSD, a lot of health effects. In fact, I'm looking at going in to the VA, and I have not even signed up for any of my benefits. So I've been losing out, paying money out of our own savings and medical to cover issues that I am eligible for having taken care of through the VA. But here's the deal. There's a lot of people suffering, up to 22 veterans a day in their own lives. And I've been fighting against suicide. We'll be having a lot of great segments on this. This is a suicide awareness band to remind me of that. And we're going to be talking about all kinds of things to help people prevent suicide, because it's just not good. I understand people getting so discouraged and whatnot, unhealthy pain and suffering, but we're here to work and bear one another's burdens. I'm a man of faith, and we're here to work together. We have brothers and sisters in arms that we need to help. So anyhow, war is one of those things. And like I said, I don't want to minimize what's going on, but it's what's going to go on that's the scary stuff. I just want to show you something that was just posted yesterday. This is an article posted military.com, 11 March 21. And let's see. Top uniformed soldier in China stated that war with the United States is inevitable. Okay, China's gearing up. I will probably put a link to some shows that talk about China, or maybe the top 10 fighting forces in the world, and the fact that China is on the top 10. Why are they not bigger? Because they're huge. They haven't been in any major conflicts lately, but they're equipping up like crazy. They have a huge division that is all about cyber warfare and what they can do to mess with us electronically. And there's attacks and attempts at attacks constantly. And probably a lot of them that are successful. And it's not just our military or intelligence targets, their industry. They steal a lot of our secrets. Of course, you tell me if this is wrong, but I heard that Clinton gave them technology back in his administration that allowed them to improve their computer technology that brought them 25 years in advanced improvement. To the point where China has a vast number more supercomputers than we have here in the United States. So if you are in the know on that, I want to hear about it. Please tell us down below, or get a hold of me. I would love to interview you or somebody that's in on that particular subject. But if you are the head uniformed general in the Chinese military and you say it's inevitable, what does that mean? I think it means that you are willing to strike first. Because if it's inevitable, why would you wait for the adversary to strike? And if they're going to fight, who do you think that the Russians are going to ally themselves with? You think they're going to stand up with America against China? Or do you think maybe they'll join China? I know that Putin has said that the biggest tragedy that ever happened was the fall of the Soviet Union. Now, of course, he was the head KGB officer at the time, and now he's been leading the country for quite some time, and everyone seems to love him. It was the younger generation that think he's great, not the people that lived through what they were going through before. People forget, and when cultures forget history, they tend to repeat it. I don't foresee it being a good thing. So what does that war mean? What does that look like? Do you think that they're going to sit back and just use conventional? In fact, they have stealth fighters that look very similar to ours. So anyhow, they're building up and building up and building up. And of course, we know that the socialist countries tend to throw their people away. I talked at length with a Vietnam veteran who was a supervisor at a site where I worked as an EMT security officer, and I was in the military at the time. he would come in and talk with me. He knew I was a safe person to talk to, and that I respected him. Especially, he was a Marine Corps sniper, and the stories that he told, the Vietnam War, they were tough. They were tough things. And he would talk about how they would be forced to shoot women and children that were being used as shields as they were coming toward our troops. One lady, he said, was naked and running at them with her hands like this. They ordered her to stop. She wouldn't. They had to shoot her, and she had a string of grenades behind her that she was going to use to run in and throw. He said they would strap their children all around the boats that they were using to come in and attack our troops. They don't care about lives like we care about lives. They're willing to throw them away a lot more easily. I don't think that we try to throw away our lives, but sometimes we have to sacrifice. But they don't care about life, and they don't think about life the way that we do. And you think they're just going to use conventional? No, they're probably going to use nuclear. And they have a huge force. And what would they use nuclear? Would they do full-scale nuclear, or would they do a preemptive EMP attack? What is EMP? We've talked about it before. We'll talk about it again. Electromagnetic pulse. It's a special nuclear device that creates a very powerful shock wave of electrons, if you will. It's everything from a cap gun to the largest nuclear device we've ever had. They all have an EMP. A cap gun has a tiny little EMP, which doesn't affect anything around you, right? Not, But a nuke has a big one, so it affects a lot of things. And they've found that if you put a device up over the United States or a landmass, it's like a satellite, and it has a footprint everywhere it can see, line of sight, kind of like what they talked about in Jeff Goldblum and Bill Pullman's characters in Independence Day. They talk about line of sight. So that signal can go down and affect things. So what happens when they detonate the nuclear device high up in the atmosphere, like let's say 300 miles over somewhere in Kansas, I think is the center spot. Anyhow, it has a footprint big enough they can see the entire continental United States. And of course, a little bit of Canada, a little bit of Mexico. But it's big enough that it could theoretically fry or affect the electronics in the entire nation. Or if you had 3 smaller ones at a lower elevation, that one from the Gulf Coast, one from the West Coast, one from the East Coast, launched from Scuds, cheap Scud missiles with a nuclear device attached to the top, launched from rusty freighters that are old and decrepit and that don't look like they're threatening. They look like some old derelict fishing boat that somebody's using to, try to make a buck here and there. And they could launch them. Then they would scuttle the ship so they sink, so there's no evidence left behind. Then those devices would go up, detonate, and boom. And there was an article back that said if they launch one EMP over our nation's capital, the D.C., Virginia, and Maryland area, that it would cause $700 billion of damage just from one device, frying all the computers and all the infrastructure. And they would have to pretty much start all over, rewiring everything and building new computers to go in, all the power grid, all those transformers. You don't understand that just the transformers alone, if you have a major switch rack for a power company, you got 60,000 volt power lines coming in. They have to step those down with transformers down to around 6,000. And then they go to your local neighborhoods, and then they eventually get switched down to like 6,000 volts. So the transformers are in your neighborhood. If you ever heard a transformer blow and then power goes out, they have to come in and with their trucks and everything and isolate the power grid and replace that transformer and hook everything back up. The linesmen do a great job with this. It's a tough job, and we respect and are grateful for them for keeping our grid up and running. But the deal is that if one of those massive transformers is taken out, they don't have a bunch on the shelf. Yeah, can you bring over a whole bunch of those that you have in storage? No, they don't have in storage. You have to say, this is getting old. Will you build one? And there's one company over in Europe somewhere that builds these. And it takes like 4 months to build something like this. I mean, they're really big and huge. A lot of resources, a lot of materials. They build it, they ship it over, they bring it here, they set it next to the one, and they hook it up, and then they switch from the one to the other, and then they take the old one out and recycle it. Even if one plane landed short of a runway and ended up hitting a switch rack of a major power distribution substation, that could take out the power in your whole area for quite some time. Now, I think they're trying to come up with some portable ones that they can bring in and hook them up as temporary, and they might have a few of these, but there's no way they could cover all of those transformers that might get fried. And pretty much everything can hook to it that isn't hardened with EMP. We're going to talk about how do you harden your own electronics. I want people to have ham radios and maybe some old CBs as backups. We talk a lot about these little guys. They're dual band. The one I showed you was a very expensive, cost me $285, and that was used. This is a high-end one and has tons of features. This is a very, very cheap low-end one, but still has a ton of features. And it's Chinese made, but do you think the Chinese are going to be sending us their ham radios anymore if they're going to bomb us or attack us and war with us? And they keep threatening, they keep pushing. They've messed with Hong Kong, and they're just encroaching and psychologically pushing the people into where they're fully indoctrinated and whipped into shape like the rest of their country. And there's been threats of them getting their Taiwan back. The Republic of China, the free China, Taiwan. My son lived there for a couple years, speaks Chinese. And I would hate to see them being attacked because we're not watching this dragon that's waking up. And what they're doing is they're building an island over there. And then because of territorial laws, they have so much territorial waters around that land. So now all of a sudden they're claiming stuff in the seas over there which weren't theirs before. And so you're like, wait a minute, that's cheating. You don't just go build an island and then all of a sudden you're able to claim this land. And so they're doing some shenanigans. So war is not good. And if it's a big stuff, like I said, the war we've had right now, it's just, you hear about a unit going over there and you hear about them coming back and you say, good job. And you occasionally hear about a soldier that passed away and came home. In fact, there's a fantastic movie. We just watched it the other day and I really want to share it with people. It's called Taking Chance. True story. Lieutenant Colonel's character is played by Kevin Bacon, and part of his job is checking the list of casualties, and he happened to notice one from his hometown, and he thought that he was going to be taking this kid to his hometown, so he volunteered to be the escort to take this soldier's remains home. And it's just such a touching story. It's just really touching, and it shows the respect that most of our nation is starting to show our troops. Nothing like what they did during Vietnam with the radical left. And I remember during the Gulf War when my unit was called up, and a lot of units were called up. In fact, when I was in AIT, Advanced Individual Training, it's where you go after your basic combat training. You go to Advanced Individual Training because everyone gets the same basic training. We all learn how to shoot the M16, polish our boots, march, basic first aid, and BRM, basic rifle marksmanship, and those kind of things. You get to go shoot a law or an AT-4, a little rocket launch, shoulder-fired rocket launcher. You learn all those things in basic training, and then you go learn your specialty. It's like if you're going to be a generator repair technician, or a fire direction control person, or a gun bunny with the 13 Bravos, the cannon crewman for artillery. I was a 13 Alpha eventually, or you can go be a chemical officer, which is my favorite job in the Army. And it's the least picked job because even that's scary because you're dealing with nuclear and biological and chemical issues, which is what do you think they're not going to use those? Anyhow, when I was at AIT, before I left, nobody had even heard of Saddam Hussein or even knew where Iraq was. By the time I finished my training, half the people in my graduating class, of which I graduated a Distinguished Honor Grad, I was the top soldier there. I got promoted. I also got an Army Achievement Medal for that. Anyhow, half of my class was sent to and assigned to units that were already over there or that were being mobilized to leave. And when I came home, within a month or two, my unit was mobilized and to go. But unfortunately, 2 months after I got back, that's when my daughter died from a choking accident, which I'll share that story sometime. But I tried to be ready to go, but they said, no, you stay home, take care of your family. And it was only 2 weeks after my daughter passed away that we were mobilized. So anyhow, so stuff happens fast. Everybody knew who Hussein was. I remember the sergeant coming out. All right, Here's the latest bad guy, and we're going to have to go fight him. Get ready. It's like, okay, that's what we're here for, is to defend our nation and our nation's interests and to stop bad guys from spreading. And the more bad guys that spread around, it's just like this COVID, It starts spreading around, and then one nation closes, and then everyone starts panicking. Before you know, it's a domino effect. It's like, well, they're closing, but we should close. We should close. My son was in the Philippines at that time. He decided he wanted to, after he graduated, he said, you know what, I want to give back to God, and maybe I'll go be a missionary and do some humanitarian work and go help people and maybe spread the good word or something. So he's over in the Philippines, and they shut their country down so fast that he had wet clothes on his luggage when he got home. And if bad guys start doing bad stuff and nobody stands up to them, then more and more bad guys, and it'll kind of go fast, just like the former Soviet Union kind of fell fast. The Eastern Bloc, the Warsaw Pact countries, they started collapsing, and our intelligence didn't even know what was going to happen. They said that happened so quick that we were caught off guard. We had no idea that was going to happen that quick. But I remember it's a quote that was said on the wall of one of our headquarters for our National Guard that I happened to be in. It was a quote by one of their leaders saying, we will feign the greatest desire for peace, and we'll pretend like we're super peaceful, and they'll let their guard down, and we'll get in, and then we'll strike when they think that we're their buddies. That was a Russian general or something like that. I wish somewhere I probably have, but I'll never find it. Maybe I'll see if somebody that is in that structure knows where that quote is, or what it was, or where the reference is, but that's pretty substantial. So anyhow, war sucks. War is hell, as they say. And the fact that they're saying it's inevitable, that means we need to get prepared. We need to get prepared for nuclear, biological, chemical, EMP. We need to be prepared for grid down. And when the grid goes down, WROL picks up. We saw that in major disasters where they're temporarily down. WRLs without rule of law, and that's when things go crazy. And people start thinking, well, they're overwhelmed. Now it's time to exact vengeance on Billy Bob. Or, now's the chance to go over and take advantage of that sweet little thing that I've been eyeing and obsessing over, or whatever. The horrific things. You've got to be prepared. You got to have your neighbors prepared. You've got to have the tools necessary to stay warm, stay fed, stay hydrated, stay alive with first aid. And we talked about the rule of threes. 3 to 5 minutes without clean, safe breathing air, or without immediate medical attention if you've been injured. 3 to 5 hours without the proper clothing or shelter. But clothing is most important because that's your portable shelter, and that way you can move fast and you don't have to stop and build some kind of shelter. It will take you 5 hours. You can just move because you've got the right clothes. And we'll talk about that. 3 to 5 days without water. We're going to talk all about water, how to procure it, how to purify it, how to store it. There's a whole bunch of techniques for that. And water is so important. We're going to talk about all these things. So we've got to be ready for the big stuff. And if you're ready for the big stuff, you're ready for everything else that's lower on that ladder or that totem pole. So let's be prepared for the big stuff. And let's hope that it's small. Let's be prepared for accident and hope we never use that seatbelt. Let's be prepared for fires and hope we never have to use that fire extinguisher or our fire drills. Let's hope we never have to do them for real. But we need to have all those things in place. Let's hope for peace, but be prepared to repel war and or mob rule, etc. Anyhow, time to get prepared is now. Let's do it. But let's also get prepared in here, and here, and here. Stay tuned for our Hip to Be Square segments. We talk about being prepared mentally, physically, spiritually, and socially. There's 4 kind of aspects to our lives. We're physically, we've got to have our body physically healthy, and we're not doing that as Americans. We're not eating right, we're not exercising. At the rate which we're going, everyone will be obese at some point. And including me, I've got a belly pack that's I got to get rid of. We got to get healthy. The kind of foods we're eating are horrific. But also we have to have the physical resources. Now, stuff is down here. You got to worry about your attitude and other things. Stuff is important, but it's not the first thing you go to and have a crappy attitude. You got to have the right attitude, because you can survive without a lot of stuff if you have the right attitude. Or you can have all the stuff in the world and not survive. I think I've shared a story that we had a friend of mine had a buddy. He was on a search and rescue team, and they found a guy expired, frozen, sitting on a rock with a nice winter parka. If he just got up and moved around, he could have generated enough heat to stay warm. And he had a pile of cigarette butts next to him, which means what? It means he had a lighter on him, and he could have lit a fire. He could have lit a whole tree on fire if he had to. That would have been a signal, but he also could have stayed warm. And he didn't know because he didn't have the right mentality. He didn't have the right attitude to deal with frustration. He just sat there and thinks, I don't know what I'm going to do. Guess I'm going to die. Pull out another cigarette. I don't know what I'm going to do sitting here on a rock, freezing to death. No, I want to vanquish that attitude amongst people. We've got to turn that around. My brother just told me, I'm going to put a link to a segment that we just found and that we recorded 2 years ago. You know, I've got tons of great it's been almost 3 years. I've been capturing content for quite some while and been frustrated because I didn't know quite how to bring these things to fruition. My son's now helping me edit, so we're going to start finding stuff and we're going to be sharing lots of awesome content. But my brother was just telling me about a book in this video, and I called him up yesterday and asked him more details, and it's called The Last Child in the Woods, and he's talking about how society is turning around. We've become so urbanized. Everyone's staying indoors, hooked on, they're just stuck on their electronics, and they're not getting out. And I find myself even doing that, even trying to get this show up because I'm trying to reach people that are on it so they can learn how to get off of them and get out there and do the stuff. Or if they do have these, we're going to do a whole segment on the right kinds of things to have in your phone, the right way to set up your phone and protect your phone and build it up so that it is ready, that you're always carrying around extra power. It'll charge your phone up once or twice. This one even has a built-in flashlight. I charged this up till this would not work anymore. And then I turned it on and it still had light. I wonder how long it'll go. And it went for like 4 days, 24/7, with light on a battery that's considered dead and needed to be charged. And I charged it up and turned one of them on and then just let it go. And it went for like 5 weeks, 6 weeks that it had power or that was lighting. And it was a battery that you should be able to carry around with you so you have a backup way to charge your phone. We're going to talk about all kinds of stuff, all the right kinds of apps to have on here that you can be stored on your phone so you have a great resource. The way that this will work with this, earbuds plugged into this with the right app. We'll turn this into an FM radio receiver, not streaming with or connecting to your local cell tower. It's not going through the grid. It's just picking up radio transmissions from the radio tower off on some mountain peak somewhere. Wouldn't it be great to have a backup emergency? All you have to do is carry around one of these little packets that have these little cheap cords that maybe you got. I always save the ones that I get from the airlines. You know, they pass out these little earbuds that you can hook in and watch your little movie. We'll keep those. Keep them in your everyday carry and have one in your purse or your pocket or something. And when the grid goes down, if your phone isn't fried with it, if it's just a power outage that's not EMP related, then you can hook those earbuds in, turn your phone on, turn on your app, and you're listening to the radio and you're telling everybody what's going on, and they all have information. Just think about how much we were glued to the TV on 9/11 for the first few days. We were just hungry for information. Ham radios. This is an AM and an FM radio, besides shortwave radio, besides a tri-band ham radio, and a weather band, and mirrors, and theoretically it could work on your FRS and GMRS. We're going to talk about all those. This one has a built-in FM radio, which means you can be listening to emergency information, and your traffic comes in, like say your son or your wife wants to contact you. They pop in. The broadcast radio, FM station you're listening to, it stops them, and you conduct your traffic. All right, great, max out. And then it resumes their FM broadcast, and you're still getting information. We're going to talk about all kinds of important things like this. Got to be ready. Got to be prepared. And if you're prepared and nothing happens, that's fine. You're just prepared and you're good. You know how to use the grid's up. Everything's fine. You still have a lot more capabilities than most people have. But if things get ugly, then you still know what to do, and you're fine, and you're comfortable, or you're more confident. You're not freaking out because you kind of know what to do. And that's where we want to be. We want to know what to do. We want to be providently living, self-reliant, helping others, being in a position to help others instead of being the one that has to be rescued. constantly. So enough of this. Stay tuned. Let's get ready for the big stuff, and then we're ready for everything. Until next time, Max out.